This place has been chosen by the Lord.
There's something different here from any other town I've ever visited.
There is nothing else like it.
May the spirit that is here radiate throughout the world.
What can be done here interculturally is what mankind must do if we are to ever have real brotherhood on this earth.
Nowhere in all the world is the spirit of aloha felt more abundantly than Laie on the northeastern shore of Oahu. The ancient Hawaiians singled out Laie as a special place, a place of sanctuary, a city of refuge, and that designation has remained with Laie for thousands of years.
While the kapu system of the ancient religion was still in place, if there was an infraction of any kind, you could easily be put to death.
When you broke a kapu or you did something wrong on the outside, if you made it to the city of refuge, you were safe.
And there were a number of places throughout the islands, and Laie was one of them.
Missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints began teaching on these islands in 1850, just 3 years after the settlement of Salt Lake City, Utah.
The first 10 missionaries who were called to Hawaii were working in the gold fields of Northern California. An apostle, C.C. Rich, came into their midst, and he said to various ones, "We're thinking of sending you to Hawaii for the winter, or maybe longer."
We landed upon these shores complete strangers, totally ignorant of the language, customs, and prejudices of the people. I had little thought at that time that I would ever learn their language or come as familiar with their customs as I afterwards did.
As they gained use of the language, it was the teachings of the Book of Mormon that struck a chord of familiarity with many Hawaiians.
It became so fascinating to me because I knew absolutely nothing about Joseph, who was sold into Egypt. But I knew as a Hawaiian, we descended from Neve Neve Maulina Ikeikiku, who was one of the 12 sons of Kaimipukaku Kinilawa. I didn't know anything about Lehi, who left Jerusalem, built a ship and went across to the new land. I only knew about Anianiku, that left the land of Kulanahauola, went into the Nahelehele, the bush, the forest, built a huge double canoe, and they went across Keala Amaveula Akanaloa, the great desert sea of Kanaloa, and went to the new land called Keainakai Melemele Akane. I knew absolutely nothing of this guy named Hagarth, the shipbuilder, but I knew about Kalaniku I Hawaii Loa Ke Koa I Kahiki, who married Hualalai and had a daughter named Oahu. And that is from where we descend.
Proselyting success began to escalate when a prominent circuit court judge, Jonathan Napela, showed interest and offered assistance on Maui.
It took some time, a few months, actually, for Napela to join the church, but when he did, he became as solid as a rock.
Just a few weeks after his baptism, became the assistant to George Buchanan in creating the first translation of the Book of Mormon into a foreign language.
Canon rely on the understanding and the experience of Napela in the Hawaiian culture and the language. Where on the other hand, Napela was taught by George Buchanan about the principles and the teachings of the gospel.
Due to deep-seated prejudice, Napela's conversion resulted in the loss of his judgeship, but his assistance in translating of the Book of Mormon and teaching the Hawaiian language to the missionaries made him a powerful missionary himself. In less than 3 years, nearly 3,000 native Hawaiians responded to an invitation of baptism into this new Christian faith.
One of the first things that came up was the need to strengthen and consolidate and gather the saints to one place.
After a diligent search, Elder Francis Hammond discovered a large parcel of land that was available for immediate sale on the northeastern side of Oahu, if the sale could be effected quickly. Without time to consult Salt Lake City, he retired to his bed and received what has been described as a most convincing dream, as recorded by Elder Ward E. Pack.
President Brigham Young and his counselor Heber C. Kimball came and went with him over the plantation, calling his attention to the many desirable features it presented for the gathering place of the native saints, and also saying in a very positive manner that this was the chosen spot.
About the same time, another missionary in Laie, Elder William W. Clough, had a similar experience.
I strolled along a path winding through grass plots and haw thickets when suddenly, and to my astonishment, President Brigham Young came walking up the path and met me face to face. After ordinary greetings were exchanged, we sat down, and a brief conversation about the work on the islands passed between us. He then referred to the beautiful landscape before us. "This," he said, "is a most delightful place. Brother William, this is the place we want to secure to gather the native saints to. Upon this land, we will build a temple unto our God."
That was a remarkable set of circumstances that two men verified in the same kind of vision that Laie was to be the gathering place.
With these assurances, the 6,500-acre parcel of Laie, containing a cattle ranch and some arable land, was purchased in January 1865 for the gathering of Hawaiian saints.
Mormon leaders were interested in cultivating more than a spiritual society in Hawaii. In a letter to King Kamehameha V, LDS church leader Brigham Young wrote of edifying the entire man.
"They will go there as religious teachers, but while this is their calling, they will not confine their labors to spiritual matters only. According to the precepts of our religion, the spiritual and temporal are so intimately blended that we view no salvation or system of salvation as being complete which does not provide means for the welfare and preservation of the body as well as the salvation of the spirit. Therefore, they will endeavor to teach your Majesty's subjects, who may listen to them, practical salvation."
Practical salvation was essential in Laie in 1865 because their community could not long endure without a sustainable cash crop. After much experimentation, sugar emerged as the most promising product. Revitalizing the fields each year was another matter. Drought on the windward side of the island was an all too common occurrence. Many prayers were offered. In 1881, President Harvey H. Clough, who was acting as both LDS Hawaiian Mission President and plantation manager, was so worried by a persistent drought that he rode up into the mountains behind the plantation one day, dismounted, and cried aloud, "O Lord, take my life rather than this cane should perish." He then built an altar and knelt in humble yet determined prayer for a solid hour. Although rains did begin to fall within hours of the prayer, to be effective, water must be sustainable. Later that year and into the next, 3 artesian wells were sunk in the ahupua'a of Laie to lighten the stress on the crops. By 1888, however, the area of Laie was experiencing yet another drought.
The people were discouraged. It was a barren and unfruitful place.
Many were again considering leaving Laie. The highly respected member of the First Presidency, Joseph F. Smith, who was living in Laie at the time, felt impressed to counsel them.
After listening to the people complain for a while, President Smith arose and said, "My brothers and sisters, do not leave this land, for this place has been chosen by the Lord as a gathering place for the saints in Hawaii. Be patient, for the day is coming when this land shall become a most beautiful land. Water shall spring forth in abundance, and upon the barren land you now see, the saints will build homes. And upon this place, the glory of the Lord will rest, to bless the saints who believe in him and his commandments."
That to me is one of the great miraculous things in the history of this church. A prophesied change from an inhospitable and difficult and unproductive area to the magnificent beauty of Laie today.
During the 27 years of President Wooley's tenure as mission president and plantation manager, the plantation greatly increased its yields. 7 additional wells were drilled, a large pump installed, and more land was cleared. Australian ironwood trees, planted just before his arrival, gave the area a break from the salty winds, thus enabling gardens and flowers to finally flourish in Laie.
One evening in 1915, while Joseph F. Smith was visiting Laie as president of the church, he invited Apostle Reed Smoot and presiding Bishop W. Charles Nibley to walk with him. As they approached Ihemolele, they discussed the great blessing that a temple would be to the wonderful saints in these islands. Pondering their magnificent view, President Smith stopped and said that if it met with their approval, he felt impressed to dedicate the ground right where they were standing for the temple of the Lord. Without objection, President Smith then led the men in a prayer of dedication.
Never in all my life did I hear such a prayer. The very ground seemed to be sacred, and he seemed as if he were talking face to face with the Father. I cannot and never will forget it if I live 1,000 years.
A temple being built outside of a large LDS community had no precedent. And with only a few hundred church members, this was a huge tribute to the people of Laie that such trust would be placed in them.
It's amazing that the Hawaiian Islands got a temple in 1919, where there wasn't such a large group of members of the church back then.
We must remember that to that point, we had Salt Lake, we had Logan, Manti, St. George, and that was it.
To have had the temple here since that time, if it isn't central to families who are members of the church in this Laie community, then it really should be.
President Smith presented the proposal to the necessary priesthood quorums in Salt Lake City and received unanimous approval. Therefore, in January 1916, the Ihemolele Chapel was moved down the hill to make room for the temple.
Groundbreaking for the temple took place in October 1916. The temple structure itself was steel reinforced concrete, made from abundant lava crushed into an aggregate and beautifully adorned throughout. As the temple structure rose, sculptors Leo and Avard Fairbanks cast high-relief friezes of God's dealings with man and placed them high on the temple exteriors. They also sculpted beautiful statues and reliefs and positioned them throughout the temple gardens.
The temple's construction was completed in late April 1918, but with the great flu epidemic that took 50 million lives worldwide, the temple's dedication had to be postponed until travel restrictions were lifted. It was during that period that President Joseph F. Smith, the beloved missionary who had prayed so fervently for this temple, passed away. It was another year before President Heber J. Grant could proceed with the dedication of the temple on Thanksgiving Day, 1919.
We thank thee that thousands and tens of thousands of the descendants of Lehi in this favored land have come to a knowledge of the gospel. We thank thee, O Father, this day that the promise made in a dream to thy servant William W. Clough by thy prophet Brigham Young that the day would come when a temple should be erected in this land is fulfilled before our eyes. May all who come upon the grounds which surround this temple in the years to come feel the sweet and peaceful influence of this blessed and hallowed spot.
If anything, it just increased, if you will, the overall significance of what a gathering place can be, a place where you can connect with God, a place where you can learn and be educated, a place where you can work, employ your skills, and of course, enjoy the beauty of Hawaii.
What better place to live than in the sight of a house of the Lord, where eternal ordinances are participated in. And we can take from what we've learned from the community into the house of the Lord and enhance it, then we return back into the community a better person.
In the fall of 1920, LDS Apostle David O. McKay was sent on a year-long fact-finding tour of church missions throughout the world. Laie was the highlight of that tour.
Hats off! Along the street there comes a blare.
On the morning of February 7th, 1921, The Laie Elementary School hosted Elder McKay at a special flag-raising ceremony. He was greatly moved by the presentation of the barefoot, multi-ethnic children.
As I looked at that group of youngsters, American, Hawaiian, Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, all thrown into the melting pot and coming out Americans, my bosom swelled with emotion, and tears came to my eyes, and I felt like bowing in prayer and thanksgiving. The Church of Christ will surely make of all nations one blood. May God hasten the day in which this is accomplished.
Elder McKay envisioned an institution of higher learning gracing this land to educate those of many nations in peace and harmonious living. But years would pass before its fulfillment. With the ending of the Korean War and the announcement that David O. McKay had become the new president of the LDS Church, construction of a college in the islands finally took center stage. In the summer of 1954, it was announced that the Church College of Hawaii would be built in Laie, with Dr. Ruben D. Law as president, and would be operating the following year.
When the Church College of Hawaii was being built, and they couldn't get it done fast enough, and so President McKay said, all right, we have to start, and let's build a temporary campus. Von Clissold went all over the island and bought some old structures at the Army bases and the Air Force bases in the area, had them cut in half and trucked along Kamehameha Highway up to Laie. They assigned 2 of the bishops to be responsible. Bishop, you take care of this building, you take care of this building, and they called on their priesthood and their ward members to go build that campus.
While assembling the temporary school, the permanent campus proceeded as well, and a groundbreaking was set for February 12, 1955. As President McKay gave his remarks, the spirit was strong.
The world needs men who cannot be bought or sold. Genuine gold. That's what this school's going to produce. There'll be leaders, not only in this island, but everywhere. All the world is hungering for them. And from this school will go men and women whose influence will be felt for good towards the establishment of peace international.
In the dedicatory prayer, he continued,
that this college and the temple and the town of Laie may become a missionary factor, influencing not thousands, not tens of thousands, but millions of people who will come seeking to know what this town and what its significance are.
One of the significant aspects of building the Church College of Hawaii was a program of calling young men from among Pacific Islanders to serve as building missionaries. Wendell Mendenhall, the church building superintendent, visited the islands of the South Pacific.
He literally went to Tonga, he went to Samoa, and he called building missionaries. It took the place of a 2-year mission for them.
He said, who wanted to go? All of us would jump up and said, we want to go to Hawaii. It's like going to heaven.
We all, in a sense, specialized in whatever trade we were doing, whether it be masonry, carpentry, electrical, whatever it may be.
We as Tongans, we were surprised that the Hawaiians invited us to come and eat at their house. And the Samoan, they came to Laie before. We go to their homes and we said, this is no difference.
And of course, there was a lot of different ages there. There wasn't only the young man who was 17, 18, or older man who was in the, who were in the 50s, 60s. It didn't matter.
As students began locating to Laie, they needed jobs, but Laie offered very little in the way of employment. Periodic kukilaus could benefit a few Hawaiian students, but administrators wondered how they could expand upon that for the other cultures. The president of all Pacific missions in the church, Elder Matthew Cowley, years before had voiced a desire for the day when New Zealand's Maori natives could have their own carved meeting houses built in Laie, where they could not only stay, but where they could perform native dances and music for visitors to defray travel expenses. Edward Clissold, the president of the Board of Regents for the college, liked the concept if applied to all Pacific cultures. A series of villages were envisioned where saints from Tonga, Samoa, Tahiti, New Zealand, and elsewhere could display their unique societies for a small fee.
Wiley Swap put together this entertainment group in the Church College of Hawaii, and they performed in Waikiki. They received raving reviews, so that really gave a big push to get this project ahead.
A formalized idea of a Polynesian culture center where dance, music, and culture could be displayed together was presented to the presiding authorities.
President McKay liked it and went along with it. He did not have much support from the rest of the Quorum of the 12. So he made it a first presidency project, and it remains a first presidency project to this day.
Cultural specialists and master carvers from the various islands were brought in to oversee and lend guidance to the building missionaries that would soon be recalled to construct these unique cultural centers.
So Mendenhall went back to those countries, called all of the missionaries who had been in Laie before and said, we want to call you to come back and to build now the Polynesian Cultural Center.
The majority of us who came here were already out on regular employment. We weren't labor missionaries at the time. We all had been released. But to be called again, to come here on this special call, to help build what was called at that time the Polynesian Village.
A site was selected that would be close to the college, so students easily could walk to work after class, but far enough from the temple so as not to be a disruption. But the questions still remain. Would tourists and islanders come?
All of the experts in the tourism industry said that this would basically be a flop. And who would drive all the way out here to the North Shore to watch a bunch of students who are amateur performers entertain them? It just wouldn't happen, and they're crazy to build a cultural center.
It was a bold move. When you think about it, it was a bold move. And there were a lot of people who were reluctant to support it because of so many places it could sink in the mire.
The first and most important reason why the Cultural Center was approved by the First Presidency is to support the Church College of Hawaii by employing students and then to portray our culture in such a way that the people will enjoy it.
Financial success was not immediate, however. Employees often had to stand out on the highway and wave to passerbys to get them to stop. But a visit by Elvis Presley in 1966 and other acclaimed guests enabled interest to build. By 1967, the Honolulu magazine published an article called The PCC, The Flop That Flipped. The nighttime performance, originally designed for 600 guests on a weekly basis, was expanded in size and frequency to a twice-nightly theater with over 2,800 seats, with additional villages also being added.
The Laie we enjoy today has been 150 years in the making. It has become not only a place of prophecy, but a place of fulfillment. Not just a city of refuge, but a resort of learning. It is more than a land of gathering. It has become a light to the world. The effects of Laie have spread from a wind-swept Ahupua'a to a place of prominence.
The Laie LDS Temple was renovated and enlarged in 1976 and again in 2008. The beautiful visitor center adjacent to the temple is among the highest visited visitor centers in the church.
We average about 12,000 visitors a month. Now, during the summer months when tourists tend to travel, we end up with many more than that.
And about a third of the guests that come are people of other faiths.
The Church College of Hawaii was renamed BYU Hawaii in 1974, and by the dawn of the 21st century, it would have 70 different countries represented from among 2,500 students, making this the most ethnically diverse university per capita in the United States.
I came here being proud to be a Maori from New Zealand. I soon felt proud to be a Polynesian from the South Pacific, and then graduating with a sense of just being proud to be a part of a human race where we are all so well connected to each other.
In 2001, a full-scaled, ocean-worthy, double-hulled Hawaiian sailing canoe was built in conjunction with Hawaiian studies by Master Tongan carver Tuione Pulotu and Master Hawaiian carver Kavika Escaran with the help of students and villagers.
We had to be very smart finding helpers. We couldn't do that by ourselves. So Bill and I talked, and I said, we need to get involved, to get the community involved with this project. Even when we finish, we need to get those young people from the village and train them to be the one who sail the canoe.
Knowing that Christ himself rode on ships, walked on water, and you're out there with the elements, it's extremely humbling. And it opens your eyes, but it's also releasing. You know, you can be on the ocean and you'll forget everything on land. When I'm on the ocean, I'm free.
With nearly 40 million visitors since it opened, the Polynesian Culture Center, which houses the Yosepa, has become the top paid attraction in all of Hawaii.
By its size, Laie should have no influence on the world, but its reach has extended far beyond the reef.
I know that there are things happening today in people's lives in this small little community here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that are having a significant impact in the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in many lands.
This community is special in the eyes of our Father in heaven. And as a community member, they have a great responsibility.
And I think if there's anything that presents itself on anyone that comes here to Laie, is that goodness, and they will leave feeling a better person.
We've had close to 300 of our Asian executives who studied here from 5 different provinces and been able to take it back and share what they've gained here.
If you transfer that into your homelands and into your own neighborhoods, wherever you go when you leave the university, I think that's what's going to help build that peace. Even if it's in small ways, just one person at a time, or one neighborhood or one street at a time.
All of their managers and supervisors and leaders have said they have come back changed people.
It was fascinating to me that the town was blessed, that the valley was blessed, the land was blessed, and that those blessings that were given in the past were reiterated at the founding of the university.
There is something special, something spiritual, something wonderful, something associated in the kinship with the Almighty in this area, which was purchased and set apart as a place of refuge for our people.
Behold, Laie, lovely Laie, you are the fairest of the roses kissed by dew. For you, Laie, the sky is blue, the rainbow spreads its shining wings because of you. Behold, Laie, lovely Laie, you are the magic should love